right, what is going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be giving you the secret sauce on how to close your land deals. Today, we're going to be talking about the first call that you have with a seller, and that's the discovery call. Okay, the discovery call is where you understand their motivation for wanting to sell. It's where you build rapport. So you get all the information that you need so that later on you can negotiate the best deals possible. Now, before I dive in, just to let you know the sequence that I do, I always do a 2-call close sequence. That means the first call, I don't try and close them on that call. I get the information that I need, and then I schedule a second call with them. On the second call, I present the offer and try and close. I found this to be the most beneficial way to do it because it builds more trust, it builds more anticipation, and it gets the seller into the mood that I want, which is them being more urgent, wanting to sell, instead of me being, like, oh, like I gotta close the deal right now. So you should be doing 2-call closes anyways. It's very rare that you're going to have 1-call closes, especially if you're working on sizable deals. So like that's just not common in this industry at least. Okay, and it's not even something that you should shoot for. If this was a different industry, if we were working on a different product or something, I would say yeah, you should do 1-call closes. Not for this. Okay. Now with that being said, let's dive in. Also, I want to make a caveat here. This is more important than negotiating. Okay, having a good discovery call is more important than negotiating. It's more important than objection handling. Okay, this is the most important part of any call in any industry, whatever you do. If it's related to talking to people, i.e., sales, the discovery call is the most important part of whatever you're doing. So if you're going to focus on one thing, get really good at this. Okay, so let's dive in. Now, this is a framework. Okay, so you don't need to say this word for word. Now, I've given you some questions that you can use, but eventually you want to get to the point where you internalize and you understand what's called the call flow. The call flow is just the order in which we go through, right? We talk about the intro and the frame first, then we dive into their motivation, then we, figure out their time frame, then we schedule another time to talk, right? You want to be able to go through that call flow, all right? So let's dive in. Okay, intro and frame. That's the first section of any call, all right? So what you're doing here is you're setting the tone of the conversation. It's called setting a frame, all right? If you're new to sales, it's very important that you set a strong frame because chances are you suck at this, okay? And let me give you an example. What a lot of people think when they start, doing anything where they have to talk to people, and I want to make this very clear. Getting deals in land, i.e. the sales part, this is not hard. Okay, compared to other industries, this is the easiest thing I have ever seen in my entire life and personally sold. Okay, or we're technically buying it, but you get my point. But still, if you're totally new and you've never done anything, it might feel a little more complicated for you, which is normal. But once you get the hang of it, oh, this is super easy. Point is this, is that a lot of people mess the frame of the call up and they basically sound like a customer service agent. They sound too friendly and they get walked on by the person they're talking to. And the seller just pelts them with questions, right? That's the exact opposite of how you want the conversation to go. You want to be in control, okay? So when you're first starting out, it's important that you set a strong frame. Now, as you get more advanced, you don't need to set such a strong frame because it's innate. It's just who you are. You can tell by the way I'm talking right now, I have a strong frame in this video, right? It's who I am. I don't need to be like, oh, I'm setting a strong frame right now, okay? But when you're first starting, you do need to do that. It's kind of like the guardrails if you're like bowling, all right? So here's how you do it. Be like, Jeff, how you doing? Glad to hear it. Well, look, I just got your foreman from my team. Now, this is assuming that you're using direct mail, okay? I want to hop on a call with you and learn a little bit more about the property so that I can help you out. Now, I've got a few questions about the property, and then we can take it from there. Does that sound fair? Boom, that's the frame, okay? Now, let me show you what I did. I'm friendly, I open it up, okay? But I say, hey, I've got a few questions about the property, then we can take it from there. Does that sound fair? What I'm doing is I'm telling them I'm gonna be asking them questions. And the reason that I wanna do that is so they're not rude to me and like, why are you asking me all these questions, right? And then also to let them know I'm controlling the conversation, okay? Coming hot like that. That's what you wanna do, all right? Now, something very important, and there's some other salespeople that teach to do this or older ways of selling where like people are like, oh, they gotta like you. And so what a lot of people who are new will do is they'll try and be buddy buddy and like shoot the shit and talk about, oh, you're from Michigan, I'm from Michigan too. I love the the university down there, whatever. Don't do that. I think it's the worst and the lowest way of selling possible. I mean, it's terrible. It's not good. Okay, because what you're doing is you're establishing a friendly frame. People don't buy from people they like. They buy from people they respect. Okay? Sellers sell to people they respect. When you are showing that you've got their best interest in mind by asking them high quality questions, showing that, hey, like you're the person in charge, you run this call, you're here to serve them, right? They're going to respect you. Just think about a doctor friend, right? I don't need my doctor to be all buddy buddy. Oh man, how's it doing? I like my doctor to be efficient. Yeah, hey, doing good? Okay, cool. Doctor, what's going on? Let's do it, right? You respect that. You want to have that doctor friend. Okay, let's keep going. All right, prospects are going to respond. They're going to be like, yeah, cool, no worries. All right, great. And then you move into your first question. All right, cool. Yeah, well, I've got this thing pulled up right now. It's a really interesting piece. How'd you come to own this? Right? That's a great opening question to ask, because what that's going to do is it's going to allow the prospect to start talking. You want the prospect to talk more than you. It should be like 80-20. Them talking 80% of the time, you 20%. Okay, you just want them to spill as much as possible. Okay, and not every prospect's like that. I'm gonna warn you. Some people you're gonna have to really try and get information. Okay, but if you ask high quality questions, you'll get more information. So this just gets them talking how they own the property, how they came about it, and sometimes they'll just go on to their entire story of why they want to sell, which is great. Okay. Now from there, we go into specific questions on the property that you need answered. Okay, so these are things you can't find on your own. What a lot of people do that I'm not a fan of is they use this call like an intake call to like get information on the property, about utilities and stuff like that. You can figure that out on your own, right? So the information that's easy for you to find in your own due diligence, figure it out on your own. Don't waste that in the call. The only thing you want to do here is if there's things that you need clarity on the property, right? So like maybe it looks really sloped on a 3D map and you want to ask, hey, listen, it looks pretty sloped. What's the condition like out there? Like that would be a fair property characteristic question to ask, okay? But asking if it has, county water and sewer, you don't really need to ask that. You can just look that up yourself. Now, as a side note, not every seller is going to do this, but when you ask questions like that are obvious, they'll be like, shouldn't you know this, right? You immediately break rapport. What breaking rapport means is basically like you're kind of stepping out of line where they look at you and they're like, who am I talking to, right? They're starting to see you as less and less of someone that they should sell to. They see you less and less as a trusted advisor. That'd be like a doctor saying like, you know, something dumb, like they've never, like they didn't know a body part until like a certain bone that they should know. You'd be like, dude, is this doctor like legit? Where they go to school? They go to school in like, Caribbean or something? Just I'm messing with you if you're a doctor in the Caribbean, but like you get my point, okay? So don't spend too much time there unless like you need the information, right? Maybe there's like a junkyard looking thing on a property, like obviously ask that. Okay. Now here's the real meat. We want to get to the motivation. Why do they want to sell? Hands down, this is where most people mess up on their calls. What they fail to do is they just don't go deep enough. They don't get a real reason why someone wants to sell. So they might ask, well, hey, why do you want to sell? And the person will be like, oh, I got your letter. And then sometimes they'll just leave it there, which is not enough. Or they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Well, why do you want to sell? And then they might be like, yeah, I want the money. And they're like, oh, cool. And they think that's a reason. That's not a reason. It's a terrible reason. Oh, I just want money. You need to figure out what do they want the money for. You need to go layers deep, okay? Even if the prospect is just kind of curious and thinking about it, you have to understand they took the time out of their day, and this is assuming you have a blind offer you're sending or some type of letter. They took the time out of their day to give you a call, a random stranger that mailed them to buy their land, okay? You need to figure out why they want to sell. What are they going to use the money for? Sometimes they'll tell you, oh, I need a surgery, or like maybe I'm saving up for my kid's college fund, right? But even if they say like, oh, I'm just going to save it, what for, right? Probe in, find the real reason. There's always something. And sometimes, here's what you have to understand. It's not that prospects are like necessarily trying to hide something from you. They might just not know. Like someone might say, oh, I'm just looking to save it. All right. And they may have not really thought about what they could do with the money. It's your job as the leader of the call to help facilitate that and help them realize what the money would mean for them. Right. So if someone says, oh, yeah, I'm just looking to save the money. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I guess what's got you wanting to kind of save some extra money right now, based on where you're at? Right? Some question like that, and they might be like, well, um, stuff has changed in our family a bit, and there's been some kind of shifting around. Like shifting around, like what do you mean by that? They're like, yeah, well, all of our family they moved from California to Florida, and I'm still here in California, and kind of thinking about making that move over. Oh, okay, so you were hoping maybe you could use some of that money to help you with the move? Like, yeah, that's kind of the plan. Got it. Okay. What are you thinking about doing when you get to Florida? Are you going to be buying? Are you going to be renting? Do you have any idea? Oh, I'll probably, buy. Cool. Okay. Where are you thinking? What area? And like you just go boom, 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 boom down. And then ideally what I'd find is like how much they're going to need to move to Florida? What are they going to need on a down payment or whatever other expenses? That's how deep you need to get. Okay, because when you do that and you get to that level of depth on your call, it's no longer about necessarily the dollar amount. It's about solving a problem for that person, right? Because maybe you mailed them at $50,000, but let's say hypothetically all they need is $20,000 for the down payment. You could absolutely negotiate down and they would still take it because they're going to have the money for the down payment, right? But if you don't figure out what they're going to use the money for, the exact amount that they're going to need to do whatever they want to do, then when you go to negotiate the end, it's purely just about numbers. And that's why you lose. Okay. You have to have the true motivation. All right. It's extraordinarily important. All right. So let's talk about some questions. Again, I'm giving you a framework here. That's the mental way to think about what we're doing, but I'm going to give you some specific questions that you can use. And so what they are probing questions. That's basically when someone tells you something, you want to go deep into it. Okay. So easiest ways to start probing. Gotcha. Okay. So I mean, how long have you had it for? Right? They talk about, I've had it for 5, 10 years, whatever. Okay, cool. Have you thought about selling it before? Or is this kind of the first time? Okay, got it. This is a great one. I know I mailed you out of the blue, but I'm curious. After owning this for the last 10 years, I mean, what's got you possibly considering selling it now? That's a fantastic question. And if you guys can't notice based on my tonality, you might hear like I'm really like fluctuating and saying this and like it might sound kind of weird, like not being in a conversation, but it's so important what I'm doing with my tonality. Okay, because and this is a whole other video, but I'll try and keep it succinct. When you ask questions like that, the questions come off differently, right? When you show that you're really trying to think about it, you're kind of elongating what you're saying. It shows the prospect, like, I was really thinking about it. And it changes the nature of the question. You may have heard as well when I said, hey, what's got you, possibly considering selling it now? This is a point when a lot of people mess up with this question, is you're trying to figure out like, hey, why does this person want to sell? Well, if you straight up ask them, hey, so what's got you wanting to sell right now? A lot of times they'll be like, I don't want to. I don't know yet. I'm not sure. I just called you. I just want more information, right? Because you're not meeting the prospect where they're at. Where the prospect is at mentally in their head is they're thinking, yeah, I'm possibly open to selling. Like they're kind of like, yeah, like 50-50, right? My tonality matches where they're at. I know that they're already kind of possibly considering it. They're not 100% in. So what I would say is like, yeah, well, I mean, what's got you, possibly considering wanting to sell it? Kind of sound unsure, which is kind of how they feel, right? And so I match them, right? When you match your prospect and you get in alignment with them, then you start to get the answers that they want. Okay, very important. Now, prospect will respond, and then again, sometimes they're going to say stuff that is vague or doesn't give you enough information. You need to keep probing. So I'm going to give you 3 of my favorite probing questions. Number 1 is, what do you mean by that? Okay. Number 2 is, why is that important to you? And then number 3 is, in what way though? Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say someone just gives a vague answer of like, just want to save the money, right? I might say, hey, I know this sounds kind of like a dumb question, but why is that so important to you, right now? Okay, so you can see I used that. Why is that important to you? Now I added some extra stuff onto that, which we'll talk about in a second. But that would allow me to go deeper, right? That would give me another reason. We're going layers deep. That's the idea. Okay. Now, as a side note, if you're going to ask a question that is like a dumb question, right? Like if someone tells you, "Oh, I want to save money," and you're like, why is that important to you? That's a dumb question to ask. However, I need to ask it to get the information I need, so I need to probe into that. So the way that you can ask it without them responding, be like, dude, that's a dumb question, or why would you ask me that? Like, everyone wants to save money, is you just acknowledge it. It's called framing, right, or pre-framing, right? I know this might kind of sound like a dumb question. See, that's the pre-frame. Then you ask the question, okay? As a side note, also, you'll see what I did is I pre-framed it, and then I also added an amplifier, okay? I said right now. Why is that important to you right now? That is a different question than saying, why is that important to you to save money? Compared to, why is that important to you to save money right now? Because it forces the prospect to think about what is going on in their life currently that makes them want to save, right? What's that current need? Okay, that's important, right? Now, from there, we want to move into time frame. So figuring out their ideal time frame for wanting to sell. And so that's as simple as saying something like, ideally, how soon you looking to sell? Okay, really what I'm trying to figure out is their sense of urgency. Do they have something going on where they like need to sell quickly, or can they wait, right? Because that's going to dictate the type of offer I make for them. Okay, generally it's one of two things. They have no time frame, so there's like no urgency. Like, yeah, I don't really care, and that's very common with what we do with vacant land because again, like that's the whole premise of reaching out to people that have owned it for decades. It's like, what's another few months, like, right? Or they have a deadline, they need it sold, at a certain time frame due to external factors. Okay. From there, we want to talk about price. Okay, we want to figure out how much they're looking to get for the land. All right. So this is assuming again you're sending out a blind offer, so you're sending a letter with an offer. If you're not, then this might be slightly different for your sales process, but this is still be helpful for you. Okay. So I might ask them like, okay, cool. Do you have any questions about our offer? Or I'm trying to kind of gauge where they're at. Right? Because if they're like, no, it seems good, then I know I could probably get them locked in our offer. But when I say something like that, they might be like, well, yeah, it's actually pretty low, and then I know okay, I'm gonna have to negotiate. Right? So like that. Additionally, when you ask that question, it also opens it up for the possibility of unearthing any problems, which is good, right? They might have an objection about something. Well, they'll be like, oh, yeah, the offer seems good, but how do I know you're legit, right? Like stuff like that. And that's important because you have to handle those objections and you want to handle that in discovery before it's a negotiation and you're trying to lock them down, okay? Now, based on that, you respond accordingly. Okay, so let's say they say no and they're ready to move forward, right? So you ask them the question, hey, do you have any questions about our offer? And they say, nope, we're good to go. You'd say, okay, great. Now, I'm just gonna take this back to my underwriters to confirm a few things with them. And I can give you a call back tomorrow. I got a pretty slam day though, so it'll need to either be at 3 or 4 Eastern. What's better for you? Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but what I do want to show you, right? And you can just screenshot this and literally say this word for word. What I want to show you is that I always build scarcity based on what I'm saying. Okay. So what I mean by that is when I'm scheduling a time, I say, yeah, I've got a pretty slam day tomorrow, right? Whether your day is busy or not, you need to say this. I can give you a call at either this or this time. That's called an option close. The problem is if you just say something like, um, yeah, okay, oh, great, I'll give you a call. When's a good time? Like, oh, call me anytime. Call me tomorrow. You're like, all right, great, I'll call you tomorrow, right? The problem is you're gonna be chasing them down because you didn't schedule a time. You didn't lock them into something. So they might forget, right? They've got a million other things going on in life. But when you give 2 times, they're gonna pick one of those, right? Or they'll tell you they're not available either, and then you find time. Additionally, what you never want to do is you don't want to give one time, like, okay, I can call you at 1. Like, they might not be available at 1. That's why you always give 2 options, okay? Now, another thing that I did there, which is extraordinarily important, what I'm about to share with you, I always go back to my underwriters. Even if I can do the deal right then there, I know I can get it signed, right? Or if I know I can't get it signed, I'm gonna have to, come up on the offer. I always go back to my underwriters. Whether your underwriters are there or not, like that doesn't matter. You could say underwriters, business partner, advisors, associates, um, your dog, someone else, okay? Because what you're trying to do here is we are setting ourselves up to win in a negotiation. The way that we do that is we basically make ourselves on their team, okay? Because right now, what the prospect is thinking is it's us versus them, okay? They think that they're gonna have to negotiate with me. So it's me versus them. That's not what I want. And that's not how you get the best deals. The frame I wanna create is that it's me and the prospect, that we're sitting side by side together, on a table, and then it's us versus the underwriters. So it's us versus some other party. Okay. I'm trying to create that frame here. That's the whole point. Because then they're going to see me as a trusted ally compared to an enemy. Okay. And so by starting to say things like that, where you're basically like, I'm not really in control, like I'm just the one talking to you, right? It's really the underwriter's decision. You're beginning to create that frame. Okay. Again, feel free to screenshot and use this as you need. This is the most important part of any call. Okay, so make sure, rewatch this video, study on it, and make sure that you're probing deep and finding their true motivation will help you get way more deals at lower prices. All right, see you in the next one.